Okay, the only purpose of this video is to help you increase your conversion rate for your store. So at the end of this video, you should be able to see those green percentages. So let's get started. So here's the big question when it comes to increasing the conversion rates for your Shopify store. And here's a random example of a Shopify product page, because everyone talks about A/B testing your product page to improve your conversion funnel. But here's my question to you. What do you A/B test first? Is it, for example, the headline? Is it, for example, the images? Is it maybe the add to cart button? Or is it really the color of the add to cart button that makes a difference? Or is it maybe the message below the add to cart button? Is it maybe the gifts or the description? Or even some people swear on the reviews have to be perfect? Or is it the FAQ page, which perfectly outlines your delivery and all the various questions that customers might have about your product? And my answer is that it's actually none of the above, and it's really price. You should really start by A/B testing price. That's the most important factor, and I think I can convince you of this because it's a very intuitive and logical factor that for most products, and this is like a standard, product page, Shopify product page, the most important factor for someone to either make the purchase or not, right? If they like the product, is really the price. Is it too expensive? Is it affordable? Is the price to quality ratio there for the conversion to take place? And that's why I think you should start with this. You should really A/B test the price and then A/B test all the other things. And that way, I think you can really have this Pareto efficiency in terms of improving your margins. So this is a real example because this store we actually know very well. This is actually the back end Shopify of the store. And at its peak, it was making around 200K a month. And the way we, again, increased the conversion rate funnel, so you can see here at its peak, it was around 1.88%, which is not amazing, but we definitely increased it significantly from previously that year. And I think the main thing was really A/B testing the price. So here I actually have a screenshot. So we use an app called Dexter. And again, there's many other apps that you can use. But what they allow you to do is A/B test the price and essentially take all the traffic that's coming to that product page and divide it into two buckets and change only one thing, which is the price, but keep everything else the same. And what we did is, as you can see here, this is the original price of $69.95 and the test price of $79.95. And we sent something a bit over 5,000 visitors to both pages. And what we saw, right, is that actually the original price gave us better results when it comes to revenue per 100 visitors. It's not the perfect metric, but it's a good proxy. That we saw that the original price was better and that actually increasing it by $10 was too much, that the customers were price sensitive enough that enough of them dropped off, right? And that our conversion rate suffered. But why this is super important is because you can continue doing those tests. And we did do those tests. We tested then 69 of 74 and 74.95. And there we saw that actually 74.95 gave us actually better conversion rate, and we could sell each unit at a higher price, right? Because if you can sell obviously at a higher price and your conversion rate improves, it's really a win-win because your profitability, your net margins will also improve because obviously your costs stay the same, but now you're selling every unit for $5 or let's say even $10 more. And again, you should do those tests along, that entire price range to find the sweet spot in terms of where exactly you're optimizing your conversion rate and profitability. And many people don't do those tests, and those tests are extremely powerful for you to really maximize exactly the financial performance of your Shopify store. Right, after you A/B test your price and you find the optimal sweet spot where you're essentially optimizing your conversion rate, because that's exactly the price where most customers are comfortable buying your product, then it's time to A/B test all the other factors that people usually talk about, such as the headline, the images, the add to cart button, the gifts, the description, the FAQ, the product reviews, etc., etc. And I think here to just give you an overview, because again, there's many other apps that allow you to do that, but I think there's 3 common mistakes that not everyone obviously, but many people make, I think, and they are tricky things to avoid. You'll be tempted to make them over and over again, just like we did. What we want to do is really have a clean split of splitting the traffic 50-50, right? One with the new images and the other one with the old images, right? Really trying to do a 50-50 split, right? To keep it as constant as possible. That's actually very tricky to do, especially if you're running Facebook ads and Google ads, and there's a bunch of nuances when it comes to all the different marketing channels and how to split those traffics. Again, there's apps that help you do that. That's number one. Number two is essentially always isolate one variable at a time, right? So don't do a bunch of different tests and run a test simultaneously for all of them, because then if it works, you won't actually know what factor exactly drove the improvement or the not improvement in the conversion funnel. So it's really important to just take one thing at a time. You need to be patient there. It is annoying at times, but first start with the images, then with the headline, then move to the add to cart, right? Really maybe do it on a weekly basis. And the last, a big hurdle is getting enough results to have statistically significant conclusions. So that's also a very common issue, that you run those tests, but you don't have enough data to really have statistically significant results, right? Just like in the example I showed you here, right? We had a bit over 5,000 customers. Again, this was for the price test, right? And that was barely enough to create statistically significant results. And again, there's calculators online that allow you to calculate this, right? But obviously, if we would have only sent like a couple hundred visitors to each of the product pages, then that would have just not been enough, right? There would have been just too much short-term noise that you couldn't really separate from the signal, right? So then you can actually get the wrong conclusions if you, again, make those conclusions on too little data. So those are the 3 points, but I think if you keep those in mind, you can then keep going down A/B testing your product page, and that way incrementally increase your conversion funnel to make it better and better over time, which really works. Let's start with something simple, which is optimizing your checkout settings to improve the conversion rate of your store. I think here the premise is very clear, which is that we want to make it as simple as possible and as frictionless as possible for your customers to check out. Of course, that first of all means to only include the absolute minimum of fields necessary for your customer to check out. So keeping things optional or not even including them unless absolutely necessary. So for example, here, company name and address line and a few other things I kept optional or didn't include because I think for most stores those things are not absolutely necessary. And yes, some customers will actually drop off because they're annoyed that they need to fill out the end thing. And this might not make the biggest difference in your conversion funnel, but it will add up and compound over time. And then things, for example, here, again, keeping things as open as possible, having phone number or email as an option for customers to check out. So again, allowing each customer to just put in their preferred method when checking out also, I think, is a good setting to add. By the way, I think adding tipping is always also a good option. I'm actually surprised how many stores still simply do not add tipping to their checkout. It's a very simple way. You literally just enable this in your checkout settings. And sure, most customers will not tip you, but there will be a small percentage that will. And that's a very simple way to increase your average order value without actually limiting your conversion rate at all. And just actually improving your profitability. Okay, moving on. This one's a bit more counterintuitive, but I've clearly seen the effects on my store. So under your payment settings, if you scroll down, and I'm on Shopify payments right now, but this applies to, I think, all main payment processing providers, is to not automatically decline charges. For example, here you can see those two settings, that charges that fail AVS postal code with CVV verification get automatically bounced. There's a much better way to do it, and I think why I'm actually mentioning this is because there's actually false positives. There's actually legitimate orders that get bounced, right? And what I do is I let all the orders go through. That way I'm fully in control of my checkout funnel, and then I decide if I should cancel or refund or do something else with that order. So let me give you an example. Here's an order, for example, that came in, and Shopify indeed flagged this as a high-risk order, right? So in every order you can see in this field, right, Shopify tells you, okay, we did our fraud analysis and we think this is a high-risk order. Okay, so now I can decide what to do. Should I cancel it? Should I refund it? Or should I do something else? What I did is I actually use an app called Shopify Flow. It's actually an app by Shopify where you can set up all those automatic flows essentially. And here what I do is that if there's a high risk order, this flow automatically sees it, it tags it, and then it cancels this order, refunds it, and sends an email to the customer saying, hey, by the way, can you please retry the order using a different credit card because this got flagged on our system as being high risk or whatever. That way, I think it's a much better way to approach it, because I'm fully in control of my checkout funnel, right? And I actually you can improve your conversion funnel like that, because like I said, there's some false positives of legitimate orders being bounced when in fact they shouldn't be bounced, and there's just a mistake because they were either using a company card or maybe a card of a family member or something like that. And in any case, I think this is a better way to approach it. Next effective way to improve your conversion rate is to actually optimize on your abandoned checkouts and to make sure that you are reconverting them as effectively as possible. So if you go under your orders tab and you actually press abandoned checkouts, you can see every single abandoned checkout on your store, right? So that's literally when someone goes to your checkout and they drop off for whatever reason, right? You can see it here. And if you press in a specific order, right, you can even find out more information on why that's the case. Like you can see, there's a lot of orange here, which is, if that's the same case with you, then that is a great sign in the sense that there's a lot of things we can improve, and we can actually make sure that we at least recover some percentage of those abandoned checkouts, and thereby, of course, improve our conversion rate, especially from the checkout to the thank you page. So like really like the last part of the funnel. How do you do that? Of course, let's start with the most obvious point, which is the abandoned checkout flows. I'm just going to show it to you on Klaviyo, but of course this works on every popular email app or platform that you might already be using. But again, Klaviyo I think is one of the most popular ones, so let's just show it here. So if we go under flows and let's just select the ones that are live, you anyway see it here. And the second one is the abandoned cart flow. And if we press that, this is a relatively standard flow, but again, really optimized towards our store. And I think that's obviously what every store should do with themselves, is that we essentially have a flow that if someone abandons checkout, right, like the abandoned checkouts I just showed you previously, we start sending them emails, and we start sending quite a few emails, and we also A/B test a bunch of stuff, right? So for example, here we have a conditional split. That's just a very kind of fancy way to say that we split the traffic 50-50, right? To do an A/B test where, for example, with one email, we wait for 4 hours, the other one, we only wait 1 hour, right? And again, this was A/B tested over many months, years, right? So that we actually came up with those two numbers. And again, every store, although it won't be wildly different, right, has obviously their own sweet spot that they can figure out by A/B testing. And then we have a bunch of follow-on emails, right? We wait another 20 hours and then we wait another day and so on and so forth. And of course, the further down we go the funnel, the more incentives we give, right? So for example, in the last email, we give a 10% off. We have a countdown timer, right? And then again, depending how aggressive you want to be, you could have even another email with even bigger incentive. Of course, you need to keep the balance in terms of not being too annoying. So this is an effective way to improve your abandoned checkouts. Okay, talking about email flows. So we now just discussed abandoned cart flows, and that being a very effective way to improve your conversion funnel by obviously recovering as many abandoned carts and abandoned checkouts as possible. However, there are obviously other flows. Generally, what we see, most Shopify stores have 5 or 6 flows that really do bulk of the work, and you should just have those 5 or 6 flows set up, and they will improve your conversion funnel, especially if you stack them and have all of them firing essentially on all cylinders. So those are the main flows, and they either improve the conversion rate or the average order value, the AOV, right? So we're going to focus on the ones that improve the conversion rate, and I did another video on how to increase your AOV. But generally, there's the welcome series flow, right? So that's the flow if someone, for example, goes to your website for the first time and just signs up, maybe to your newsletter or somewhere else. You have the abandoned cart flow, which we just discussed. You have browse abandonment. You have an affiliate flow, which is a bit separate, but I think for us still pretty effective. Not because of the flow itself, but it actually helps our affiliates make more sales. And then we have a customer win back and the upsell cross-sell flow. So when it comes to upsell and cross-sell, or in this case, it's also a post-purchase flow, right? So that's an email that gets triggered after a person makes a sale, and then we upsell them something that fits well to whatever they bought just now. That really increases the average order value. That's the primary goal of that flow, not so much the conversion rate. All the other flows actually focus on improving the conversion rate, right? By for example, abandoned cart, that's obvious, but and browse abandonment works very similar. But things like even customer win back or welcome series, right? You essentially provide an incentive as early as possible, for example, with welcome series, to increase your conversion rate, right? So just to give you an example, the welcome series, we actually have a flow that gives people a discount if they sign up to a newsletter, which is only valid, let's say, for 1 or 2 days, right? To obviously increase the conversion rate of them making a purchase as soon as possible. So having all those flows in place and essentially working together as a team is another effective way to improve your conversion rate. Now that we discussed the most effective email flows to improve your conversion rate, we can do the exact same thing, but also for SMS and push notifications. So if you obviously think about it, when customers check out, they leave certain contact information with you, with your store, which is one, their email, obviously. Two, however, it could also be their phone number, and it could even be their cookie browser settings, right, when they're on your website. So we should leverage all of that contact information as effectively as possible. So we just discussed email. If someone leaves an email and abandons checkout or does something else that triggers any one of those flows, you should be covered with those flows, and that will already, if you do all of that, improve your conversion rate significantly. However, if someone leaves their phone number and not their email, for example, and of course, going back to our checkout settings optimization, if someone wants to leave their phone number instead, you should allow them to do that. Again, that way you will create as little friction as possible in the checkout process. And that's fine, because then you can gather the phone numbers of those customers and also send them the same flows. Also browse abandonment, abandoned checkout, and you can even also do a post-purchase flow, whatever you want. Again, I think the 5-6 flows that I mentioned initially can really be copy-pasted into SMS and obviously adapted a bit to how SMS works versus email. And of course, the message here is going to be much simpler and shorter. But also, generally, the conversion rates for SMS, for example, are much higher than email for obvious reasons. It's also just less saturated at the moment. And then there's also push notifications. Push notifications are apps that also send flows, depending if and what settings have been saved when the customer was on your store, when it comes to their browser settings and history. And there's apps, for example, like Push Owl, that can also be a very effective way to send out those flows. So in summary, you can send out all those flows with both email, SMS, and push notifications, and that way improve your conversion rate even more. Right, so how can you actually also optimize your shipping fees to improve your CRO? So I'm in the shipping and delivery settings of my Shopify store. And what you can see here is fairly commonplace, right? So I have a free shipping option above a certain threshold. In this case, it's $60. Then I have an expedited option for $4.99, and then I have a priority and express shipping for $12.99. And of course, you can add as many rates as you want to. And under conditional pricing, it's either based on weight or price, right? So obviously, that depends on your business model. But what can you do, regardless of what Shopify store you have, to improve your CRO? So obviously, the step number one is to understand that there's a trade-off between your CRO and your average order value, your AOV, right? That makes sense, because for every dollar, and let's go under an analytics page, for every dollar that you add to your shipping fees, right, more customers will drop off, because it's literally the cost that you add on to the checkout page, which is the main factor that influences customers to either make the purchase or not, the price, right? But for every dollar that you add, your average order value is going to increase. And actually, this might also increase your profitability, because if your shipping fees are higher than your shipping costs to fulfill that item, you're actually also going to add profit to each order, right? So that is important trade-off. But where I would start is I would do an experiment, right? Which isn't the cleanest experiment, but to see what your conversion rate funnel is if you offer free shipping for everything, just for 1 week, to do this A/B test. And again, it's not perfect, but if you offer free shipping and you see that your conversion funnel changes dramatically, that's a very good indication that your current or your previous shipping fees were too high and a lot of people dropped off because of them. And then you can start modifying with them. But to get concrete, what are the 2 things you can do to improve your CRO when it comes to shipping fees? Number 1 is A/B test that threshold. So like I said, usually stores have free shipping above a certain threshold, even if that threshold is very low, $20, $30. In my case, it's 60. Again, it depends on your average order value. The best way to A/B test that threshold is to go under orders and to press on abandoned checkouts. Here you can see all the checkouts that have been abandoned on your store, right? So here it's quite a few. Just yesterday, dozens of abandoned checkouts, and I can see that most of them are above my threshold in this case, right? You can see a lot of the abandoned checkouts here are, above $170, which makes sense because my average order value is around that as well. However, if you, for example, for your store, that you see that a lot of people are adding to cart, right? This is literally people who dropped off after having added orders to cart are dropping off below your threshold, right? That is a good indication that your threshold is not optimized, right? That you should A/B test the threshold and make sure that maybe you should increase it, right? Because that will dramatically increase your CRO. Because then a lot of those people, when they come to the checkout page, they won't have to see an additional increase to how much they need to pay, right? Because the threshold is higher. So that's step number 1. And if you just A/B test a few different thresholds, you can already start seeing a significant increase in your CRO, or decrease. But in any case, then you'll start figuring out what the sweet spot is. And the second thing is, and I think this is the most important, is to always have, so if I go again back to our shipping and delivery settings, is to always have multiple rates. And I would say always, and again, this obviously if your business model allows, always have a rate that is free, also have a priority and express shipping option, and ideally have 3 or 4 different options. This is important. This is what in economics we call price discrimination, right? Where you allow your customers to self-select into the rate that works best for them, right? This is effective because if you still have a free option, you're not sacrificing the CRO, because all the people who want free shipping will get it. At the same time, and like, for example, I can, for example, with this store, 5 to 10% of the customers select the priority and express shipping, right? Because they're relatively price insensitive. And to be honest, it's, the order does get shipped a bit faster. It has slightly better tracking and things like that, right? But it's a marginal difference for us, right? But they don't really care, and they just want their product, 1-2 days faster. And they're willing to pay those extra $13, which for us actually increases not only the AOV, but also the profitability, because it costs us less than $12.99 for that marginal increase in shipping. So we allow all of our customers to self-select into whatever shipping works for them, right? If you only have a free shipping, or if you only have a priority shipping, you definitely are missing out and leaving money on the table. By having multiple rates, you're able to essentially optimize your CRO, at the same time also your average order value and profitability. So that's kind of, I think, really where you should focus on. Another way to improve your conversion rates is to improve your shipping times, to have fast and reliable shipping. This will undoubtedly also improve your CRO over time. We talked about already shipping fee optimization, so that's separate, right? Obviously, you want to make sure that your shipping fees are optimized so that you actually not only not scare off customers on your checkout, but actually incentivize them to make the purchase. Let's talk about shipping time. So here's the app Trackidex. And what I like about this app is that it visualizes all your orders on different maps with all kinds of layers on top. So here you can actually also select the paths, and you can see that we actually have 3 main hubs for this store where we ship our inventory from, right? Dallas, Texas, Clarksville, and LA. And of course, a big part of this analysis was A, cost, of course, and B, how fast and reliably can we ship our items on average to our customers. And yes, there's more statistics here when it comes to exact numbers, right? Here we can actually see the breakdown of our average delivery, shipment, and fulfillment time. If you add shipment with fulfillment, then that is delivery time. That's ultimately what matters. But of course, you want to fulfill quickly. That's what, again, that's where customers actually get their tracking code. And obviously, you want to ship quickly, and the sum of the two will actually be the door-to-door kind of delivery time for the customer that they ultimately care about. You want to optimize that. Again, we know statistically, right, that if you on your FAQ page and on your product page write that you have faster shipping time, especially faster than your competition, that you offer 2-day shipping, express shipping, maybe even same-day shipping, overnight shipping, all those things as additional options on top, even if they cost more to the customer on the checkout. This will undoubtedly improve your CRO, your conversion funnel. Not only that, it will also improve many other things like retention, because obviously then the chance that the customers come back second, third time is much higher if obviously they had fast and reliable shipping. So sounds great. How do you actually do that? So with this app, actually, it already kind of recommends you the best 3PLs to choose from. But let's talk about that, because I think the main thing is, and I talked about this in previous videos, is kind of the move from dropshipping to 3PL, right? So that's really where you get the bulk of the improvements. If you're dropshipping, again, the beauty of that is you have no inventory risk. That's what a lot of people start with it. But other than that, switching to a 3PL, once you have traction, right, once you know you actually have some sort of product market fit and some sort of volume, really makes sense to switch to a 3PL, because yes, you have inventory risk, which you can manage. It's not necessarily a bad thing. And your costs are similar-ish. You can actually save a lot on bulk on bulk discounts by negotiating with your supplier, because you're buying in bulk to ship to the 3PL. But the main point here is that your shipping time and your scaling flexibility go through the roof. You can now offer very fast and reliable shipping, and that switch is ultimately the main thing that will drive CRO over time. And again, as a word of caution, it's not going to be a clear cause and effect immediately, like also with like amazing customer service, right? It's not like you do it and immediately your CRO pops, but over time we just know that, and this is like a very intuitive point, right? If you can offer fast, reliable shipping, people will more likely buy from you than from your competition and come back over and over again. In fact, I even have a bigger chart, which I won't go into, about all the different ways you can fulfill your products. And you want to kind of go down this chart. I have a different video where I talk about that, but the point is, if you're thoughtful about how you ship out your items, fast and reliable shipping will ultimately, again, improve your CRO. Another way to increase your conversion rate is to do a breakdown analysis of your conversion funnel. So under your analytics page, if you press on View Report, Shopify gives you a few powerful tools centered around really the small button here to the right, which is a bit hidden. But here you can essentially break down your conversion funnel based on all those different metrics. There's quite a few. To simplify it, I think the two most important ones kind of that are the low-hanging fruit is to do it by country and region, especially if you're selling in multiple countries, and then also by device type, right? To really understand mobile versus desktop versus tablet, etc. Right? So just as a example, right? If I select based on countries, right? You can already see, and then let's maybe do 365 days. And again, the way it shows the data here isn't always the cleanest, but you can play around with it. You can already start seeing that. Again, this is on a per monthly basis, right? It's not ideal. I'll show you exactly how to actually make sense of this in a second, but you can already start seeing that there's different countries with different conversion rates, right? And that's really important data, because then we can find the weakest link and fix that, and then improve our conversion rate as an average. So to just drive this point home, let me actually, because another way to do this specifically for country and by sessions is sessions by location. So here you can also press on View Report. Let's just quickly select, let's just do country to keep this very clean, and then select conversion rate. This is a pretty classic example. So what happened here is that this is a store that sells in Canada and the United States. And what we saw is that the conversion funnel here for the United States is actually considerably lower than for Canada, right? So 0.63 versus 1.08. We had many hypotheses as to why. It turned out really that it was around the shipping fees, because the shipping fees to the United States were higher than to Canada, and that resulted in a drop off at the checkout page, right? Specifically the threshold, right? So what I talked about previously, the threshold after which shipping is for free, right? We A/B tested that, and we were managed to actually improve this conversion rate significantly, right? So you can see, so this is last 365 days. If we change this to last 90 days, for example, you can see that the United States and Canada almost converged, right? They actually almost have now the same conversion rate, and therefore increasing the average. So that's an example of how we, again, through this analysis determined, okay, which country or which region, you can obviously do this by state, you can do this by even by city if you really want to, again, depends on your business model, but we determine what's the weakest link, then we try to really figure out why, and then we fix that, right? You can also obviously do another thing, which is you can double down on your strongest geography or country, right? Sometimes we also see that, for example, Florida or California or Texas, they're by far the strongest state for certain stores, and it makes sense to actually double down and actually just have, for example, Facebook or Google campaigns just on that state. So that's a less common way because it's less scalable, but fixing the weakest links or actually sometimes even removing countries, right? Because this is a very basic analysis between two countries, more or less, right? Sometimes, you're selling into 5 countries as a classic T4, right? UK, US, Canada, Australia, etc. And sometimes it might just make sense to also exclude a country because it's just not profitable enough, or really figure out how to solve it. The other thing is to do the exact same thing by sessions, by device type. Here you can see, like with most stores, mobile is the most kind of dominant way that your customers and visitors go to your website. So the very classic thing there is to see if your mobile conversion rate is much lower than your desktop conversion rate. If it is, that's a great indication that you should go back to your online store theme, right, under mobile view, and fix your mobile view and improve that, right? Improve the page speed specifically for mobile, make sure it works for all devices from every single iPhone to Android, etc. And just make sure that it's even better and more intuitive on mobile than it is on desktop. And that will also help you increase your average CRO rate. Another way to increase your conversion rates is to optimize your page speed. So previously, actually, you had to use external tools to do all of this, but now Shopify actually includes this in-house. If you go under your themes, it literally gives you all of your page speed metrics right there. Clearly, it's so important that they now decided to include it here as well under all subscriptions. This is coupled, obviously, with my previous point on sessions by device type. So obviously, you should understand where your traffic's coming from. Is it from mobile, desktop, tablet, or somewhere else? Then compare the conversion rates for each one. Find the weakest link, and then you'll know what to improve and what to focus on. But here, I think the main point is that if you press here, Shopify gives you all of this useful information. It gives you best practices, helpful resources. Again, I'm not going to go into how to improve the page speed here because that's a much longer topic and there's a lot of other resources online, and some of it gets more technical. I think the point here is that by improving this, you will also improve your conversion rates. I'm sure you heard, there's all those statistics. If you just Google for 5 seconds that Amazon did and a bunch of other bigger companies, that if you improve your page speed by X milliseconds even, it increases your average conversion rate by Y%. And that will improve your conversion rate as well. Another way to increase your conversion rates is really to improve your customer service, your CRM. And this will also make a big difference because people don't emphasize enough, but customers also contact most stores before they make their first purchase. And that is, for example, again, here with the example of the store, it could be the chat function here, right? They could maybe call the store to see if you're legit. They could write you an email asking something in terms of delivery or some sort of product inquiry, which they need to get an answer before they decide to make a purchase, right? So obviously nailing those things will improve your conversion rate. And actually, as a side bonus, it will also improve your retention, right? Because the number one reason why customers come back is obviously they had a good experience the first time around. And a big part of that experience is obviously if they had any sort of question or issue, that it got solved efficiently by the CRM team of that store. There's a few KPIs for Shopify stores, and that's really keep it simple. First response time, first resolution time, cost per ticket. That's actually more for you, but it's also a proxy for efficiency and how efficient your CRM agents are. Customer satisfaction, so the reviews that your customers give the agents after the ticket is closed. And then automation percentage also in terms of efficiency, right? But what I would really focus on to simplify this even more, let me zoom into this. So there's the first response time and resolution time, essentially. And here is a quick overview in terms of where you want to be. I actually think this is pretty ambitious, but the point is, of course, you want to answer tickets very fast and you want to resolve them very fast. and do so efficiently, obviously at a decent price for you, right? So again, the cost per ticket needs to be affordable and reasonable. And then once those tickets get closed, and you essentially send a follow-up, message to the customer being like, please rate this interaction with the CRM agent, they give you a 5 stars, right? Which again, a lot of those CRM tools have already integrated. If you nail those things, it will indirectly improve your conversion rate. It's very hard to kind of see the cause and effect, so I'm mentioning it, but undoubtedly it will improve your conversion rate. Another way to improve your CRO is to offer bulk discounts and bundling and a bunch of other add-ons onto your page, although I would be careful with that. But let's start with volume discounts. Very simple. A bunch of stores have it. So for example, here for this water filter for coffee machines, as a random example here, if you buy between 5 and 9, you get a 5% discount, 10 to 24, 10% discount, and above 25 units, a 15% discount. Of course, that's a very classic incentive for to people buy more. It's actually more of an AOV increaser, but it will also improve your CRO, of course. And this is kind of the theme of all those videos. There's always trade-offs, of course, right? So here there will be a trade-off with profitability, but undoubtedly it's a tool that you, I think, should play around with, and then you can tweak, right? You can obviously always change the numbers and the discounts and try to find that sweet spot between improving your AOV and your CRO. Then you can obviously bundle. That really works well if you have a bunch of different products. Obviously, ones that also match very well. It's very, very kind of obvious and classic. Just going down the list of all the things you can do. There's a bunch of apps that allow you to do that. If you just go into the App Store and type in bulk bundling or bulk discounts, there's actually many apps that do that and many other features all in one. If you're already adding all those things to your product page, you can add like different pop-ups and discount timers and all kinds of other things. I think here I would be very careful. I actually think that many stores overdo it, and then it actually kind of does more harm than good because it looks a bit sketchy. I even have a list of all the different things. So here's an example, which I think is a bit too much. But yeah, you have countdown timers, you have sticky banners, you have running out of stock messages, you have urgency pop-ups and messages, you have badges, you have other pop-ups, you have animations. And here I'll be very careful not to overdo it. I think the bulk discounts and the bundling are the main things that I would really focus on. Again, depending on your business model, but I'll focus on that, and the other stuff, maybe choose only one or two things. Another way to improve your conversion rates, I'll touch on this quickly, is to do two other things, which is one, embed any of your top TikTok or other social media videos into your product page, right? So make sure that they're actually embedded. Again, there's apps that allow you to do that. So if you're literally scrolling on the product page, you can see and press the videos, and they even connect and link with your TikTok account in this case. So that's number one. And number two is to obviously have very good looking and authentic reviews. Again, I just randomly chose this example. Again, you can do a better job, but I think the point is that obviously most reviews on Shopify itself are fake or somehow redacted or are not fully authentic, to put it lightly. So I think most customers know that, and I think you want to be very, very conscious and aware of that, and make sure that have reviews that you yourself would think are very authentic and create the social proof if you would go to a different website yourself. Before you bounce, get a free valuation of your Shopify store. Just fill in the 2-minute form below, and our team will get back to you within 24 hours with a detailed valuation for your store. Also, check out other free resources on our website, artikunooptimization.com, to automate and scale your Shopify store.